first meeting we are doing with Marine Stewardship Council, we kept it 1 hour. And so allow us to start. The rest of us will get us. So thank you everyone for finding time to participate in this webinar. It's titled Introduction to Tuna Fisheries in the context of Marine Stewardship Council. Just to get your permission to record this webinar so that we can share it with the rest of us who would not be able to make it, but it will also help us to do the report for this meeting. So I would like us to start off by introductions, but we'll not do one-on-one introduction. What I would request you to do is use the chat box function. Just write your name, the institution that you represent, and the country. So the name, the institution that you represent, and the country. Then we can all go to the chat box and just see who is in the room. You can also do that by renaming. You can just click on your name. There are 3 dots. You can click there, then you say rename. Then you rename yourself in that order. That is, you put your name, your institution, and the country. So that will serve as our introduction for today. So welcome again to this session. It will run up to 12 p.m. today. And the objective of this session is to introduce us all here to the Marine Stewardship Council Sustainable Yearbook for 2024. That gives us the effort that the organization has put in place for sustainable tuna fisheries. And the second objective is just to introduce us to how MSC operates. And in the concept note that was shared with us, there's a link where I urge all of you to subscribe to the quarterly newsletter for MSC so that you can get all the information that they provide through their newsletters. So we hope that by the end of this session, you'll have a better understanding of tuna fisheries in the context of MCC, and thereafter we'll chart the way forward together. So on your screen is the agenda for today. We are going to listen to, from Marine Stewardship Council about the presentation on MCC program. Then we'll have a dedicated session for question and answer. But in the meantime, if you have a question, please use the chat box to write your question, and we'll respond to that during the Q&A session. Then after that, we are going to do the closing remarks and way forward. So with that, I would like to invite Andrew just to introduce himself, then to take us through the presentation on tuna in the MCC program. Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks very much, Doreen, and thanks to Tuna for giving me the opportunity to present to you all. So my name's Andrew Gordon. I'm the Southern Africa Fisheries Outreach Manager for the MSC, and I work out of the Cape Town office. There are 3 of us in that office, and I'm joined on the call today by Michael Merritt, who's the Program Director for Africa, Middle East and South Asia, or MISA, and Loanne Mostert, who is the Marketing and Communications Manager for MISA as well. So we're pleased to be here to be able to kind of tell you more about MSC and about our tuna program. So then just a quick outline of the presentation. I'm going to introduce the MSC and just describe a bit about how it works for those who might not know too much detail about Marine Stewardship Council. And then we'll go into more detail regarding the Tuna Yearbook, looking at the catch data, market data, some sustainability improvements that MSC tuna fisheries are undertaking, and then look at the MSC Fisheries Standard version 3 and how it is helping to address the challenges for sustainability in tuna fisheries. So then we'll just, I will also present some information on MSC certified tuna fisheries in the Indian Ocean. And then we'll look at some of the African national tuna fleets that are engaging with the MSC and the challenges they face. So as mentioned by Doreen, please have a look at the chat in order to download the yearbook. And there's also an opportunity to sign up to our Sustainable Tuna newsletter. So looking at who the Marine Stewardship Council is, basically we're an independent non-profit organization with nearly 300 staff in over 20 countries around the world. And we maintain the world's largest and most rigorous sustainable seafood certification program. So for any marine seafood. It was created 25 years ago through a collaboration between WWF and Unilever when it became apparent that some of the globally important fish stocks were being depleted and that in fact some were collapsing. So our vision then is to help protect the oceans by ending overfishing. And this is to ensure that seafood is still available for future generations to catch, sell, and eat. Our approach then to try and achieve this vision is to use market incentives. So briefly, in order to get certified, fishery volunteers to be assessed against the MSC's fishery standard by a third-party auditor. MSC is independent of this process. Now, if the fishery passes, it can display the MSC's Bluefish Eco-label on its products. And the Eco-label is a simple way of communicating to the general public that a fishery is operating sustainably. Using market incentives to drive improvements in fisheries is proving to be really effective. And our most recent annual report shows that there are 674 fisheries in the MSC program. This was up until 2023, so probably a few more now, and increasing each year. This correlates to about 19% of all wild marine catch that is engaged in the MSC program. And by engaged, we mean that is certified, in assessment to be certified, and those that have been temporarily suspended and are working to make some improvements to re-enter the program. So this actually correlates to about 15 million tons of seafood and fisheries that are operating at a very high level of sustainability. So now let's just take a quick look at why this market incentive approach has worked. Or if I had to phrase this differently, why are fisheries willing to spend so much time and effort on verifying the environmental sustainability of the operation against the MSC standard? So basically, we've found that consumers are increasingly concerned that the seafood they buy is legally fished and comes from well-managed or sustainably managed fisheries. And to back this up, a survey undertaken by GlobeScan in 2024 of over 20,000 seafood consumers from 23 countries found that 91% of those seafood consumers are worried about the state of the world's oceans. Overfishing was their second most, they considered the second most concerning threat to oceans, and 72% believed we need to switch to only sustainable seafood sources. Lastly, 69% want the fish they buy to be traced back to a known and trusted source. So you can clearly see retailers are under a real pressure to meet this demand from the consumer for sustainability. And the retailers need a clear and dependable way of telling what is sustainable and what is not. I found that MSC certification meets these needs, and so retailers are increasingly requiring the fisheries that supply them to become certified. And as a result, more fisheries are working towards certification and improving the sustainability of their operations in the process. So another result from GlobeScan that might explain why MSC has also seen an uptake in the market is what I'm going to show you next. And when seafood consumers were asked the following question, how well do you think the following institutions are contributing to protecting the environment? The response was the following. So this table shows the percentage of respondents saying that a particular institution was contributing very well. So these are the institutions along this axis here, and this is the percentage that the respondents said they were contributing very well to protecting the oceans. And we can see here that independent certification organizations like the MSC are third. So they're quite well trusted and are thought to be contributing really well. It's interesting to note that national government is down in 8th place. And this is really a pity and ironical because they have the most power, legal power, to actually make a difference and ensure that there is enforcement on the oceans. It's interesting to note that NGOs and scientists come out 1 and 2 in terms of contributing very well. So they have a really important responsibility and role to play. So that gives you the background of the MSC and why we exist and how our program works. Just a brief introduction. So let's go now and just have a look at the Sustainable Tuna Yearbook, and I'll present data and insights from the book. The yearbook starts by highlighting how important tuna are. So I'm sure for this audience, you're well aware of many of these already. So I'll just briefly mention the main attributes. So tuna plays a vital role in maintaining the health and balance of the marine food chain in our oceans. They're an important food source and livelihood for coastal communities. Tuna is one of the world's most popular seafoods and one of the most economically valuable. And a number of important tuna stocks are experiencing excessive fishing pressure. So these attributes explain why tuna is so important to the MSC's vision of ending overfishing and safeguarding seafood supplies for this and future generations. These attributes also mean MSC's market incentive approach, which encourages fisheries to operate sustainably in order to receive market rewards, can really help play a role in improving the sustainability of tuna stocks. So let's just have a look first at the tuna tuna catch data that's associated with the MSC program. Before I present that, I should just mention that the tuna species in the yearbook focus on albacore, bigeye, bluefin, skipjack, and yellowfin. So the smaller neretic tunas and other tuna-like species are not included in these data. So the ISSF, I'm sorry, the laser pointer just seems to appear on every slide each time I open it. The ISSF estimate that the global catch of those particular species, albacore, bigeye, bluefin, skipjack, and yellowfin, in 2022 was 5.2 million tons. So this is reference for the next graphic, which shows the percentage, how this global tuna catch is divided up sort of sustainably. And as one can see, 33% of that catch is certified. 20% is in assessment to the MSC standard. 25% is in FIP currently, but 22% isn't certified in assessment or in a FIP. So this 53% here that's engaged with the MSC equals about 182 fisheries that we are working with. So looking at a little bit more detail now at that catch, one can see this graphic shows the catch in the MSC program from 2012 to 2023. You can see, really rapid growth of tuna coming into the program. The blue is certified, tuna, and the orangey red is in assessment. So one can see at the moment there's quite a large amount of tuna coming into the program. So certified, there's just over, well, there's around about 1.6 million tons, and then about another million tons in assessment, leading to just over 2.6 million tons that is in the MSC program. If one looks then at the certified tuna by species, one can see that it's really dominated by skipjack. That's the light blue here. But there is a significant contribution from yellowfin as well, and smaller but important contributions from albacore and big eye. So that sort of gives you an overview of the catch in the MSC program. And then the yearbook goes on to present quite a lot of market data. And this is on the tuna that carries the MSC eco label on its products. So here we can see this is the amount of tuna that has eco label on its product, and it's broken again down by species here. And one can see sort of this really rapid incline or increase. Again, it's dominated by skipjack, and this is because skipjack finds its way into cans, and cans make up 75% of the eco-labeled product. Important other eco-labeled products is ready meals and food to go categories, but you can see that frozen and chilled product has far less carrying the eco label. It's interesting to note that there's even pet food carrying the MSC eco label. Looking at the brands then that have MSC eco label on their product. So for skipjack, this has increased from 49 brands in 2015 to 254 brands that are selling eco-labeled skipjack. For yellowfin, this has increased from 1 in 2015 to 125 brands. And for albacore, it's nearly doubled from 76 to 130 brands. One finds that there are actually regional variations in what tuna are sold in by the eco label in different areas. So different species predominate in different regions. And we can see here that in North Europe and Central Europe, the by far the dominant species sold as eco-labeled tuna is skipjack. In the Asia Pacific, it is also, again, dominated by skipjack, but there is more yellowfin as well. If one looks at the Americas, again, skipjack, very important, but you see more albacore prevalent in the Americas carrying the eco label. And then interestingly, quite different from the others, in South Europe, you've got skipjack, still very important, but really a large component of yellowfin carrying the eco label compared to other regions. So obviously a very popular species in that area, but also important contribution from albacore and big eye as well. So this next slide here shows the information in more detail. So now it's at a country level. So I'll just explain. This is for skipjack here, and the purple is here, the countries down below here. Purple is Germany, and yellow is the United States, and then United Kingdom, and then all the rest are all quite small. So skipjack are dominated by Germany and United States and United Kingdom. For yellowfin tuna, it's quite different. Italy is dominant here in the purple, France and United States in yellow and blue respectively. In terms of albacore, a different area dominating the United States in purple, with France and Spain also important locations for labeled albacore. You can see here an increase in the United States and then a decrease between 2021 to 2023 in labeled albacore. And I contacted my American colleagues to ask them if they had any idea why that was occurring. And they said that there'd been very poor catches of albacore off the west coast of America due to environmental conditions, probably linked to El Nino. So this decrease in labeled product here has more to do with there being no product to have label on rather than any market reason. So if you combine all those tuna species together, the countries that are most interested in MSC labeled tuna are Germany, United States, United Kingdom, Italy, and France, and then a number of countries all around 8 to 10,000. So if you have a look at Germany, United States, and United Kingdom, you'll see that it correlates with the sales of skipjack, which are also here, Germany, United States, and United Kingdom. And that's because skipjack is so much of it is in the program, and so much of it goes into CAN, which carries the eco label. So that concludes the sort of market section of the yearbook. But the yearbook also then goes on to spend quite a bit of time showing the sustainability improvements occurring in certified tuna fisheries. And this is a key strength of MSC's certification program, we think, is that even after a fishery has achieved certification, it's incentivized to make continual improvements. So just before I show you the improvement data, I think it'll really help to have a quick overview of how the fishery is scored against our fishery standard. So MSC's fishery standard has 3 principles that every fishery must meet in order to be certified. The first one is that the target fish stock is healthy and sustainably harvested. The second principle is that the fishing activity must minimize the environmental impact of the fishery. And the third is that the fishery must have effective management. Under these 3 principles sit 25 performance indicators. And during an assessment, a fishery is assigned a score for each one of those performance indicators by an independent assessor. So here's how the scoring usually works. Less than 60 is a fail. Between 60 and 79, it's considered good practice, but improvements are required in order to reach best practice, which is 80 and above. 100 is state of the art. So to become certified, a fishery must score at least 60 for each performance indicator, and an average of 80 across all the performance indicators that occur under each of the 3 principles. If a fishery scores between 60 and 79 for any performance indicator, it's required to make an improvement to raise its score to 80. And this is known as a condition of certification. So even if the fishery enters the MSC program, is certified, it will still have some conditions that it needs to meet to move up to this best practice area. And, sorry about that. And so in a review of 5 tuna fisheries that completed an initial assessment against the standard, and then completed another assessment 5 years later, one can see increases in the average score under each of these principles. So these fisheries are entering the program, and then over the 5 years, they're addressing those conditions, which is improving their score while within the program. This graphic here shows the information in a bit more detail. Here's the principle 1, principle 2, and principle 3, with blue being the initial assessment and orange being the first reassessment 5 years later. And you can see that even the lowest scores improved in each case. So, you know, we think that by maintaining fisheries, by maintaining their certification, are continually improving the sustainability of their operations. And this information sort of proves that. The yearbook also provides a number of case studies that show improvements that are being made or have been successfully completed by certified fisheries. And I'm going to just present them in sort of very briefly here, but if you would like to kind of find out a bit more about each of these fisheries and the improvements they made, then please have a look at the yearbook. So this Japanese fishery targets skipjack in the Western Central Pacific and albacore in the North Pacific. And their condition was to focus on the need to work with the Western Central Pacific Fisheries Commission to develop more effective harvest strategies. This Spanish fishery is an albacore artisanal fishery, and it has basically completed its improvements requirements and closed out its condition, and it had to work with other fisheries and with the ICAT, or the International Commission for the Conservation of Atlantic Tunas, to successfully rebuild the North Atlantic albacore stock back to a healthy level. This Echebasta fishery is working to close conditions that will improve its fad management through introducing biodegradable fads and non-entangling materials and better ways of tracking lost fads and recovering them. The P&A fishery, that stands for Parties of the Nauru Agreement, it's the largest MSC certified tuna fishery and provides vital employment to the small island nations of Papua New Guinea, Nauru, and the Marshall Islands. And this fishery had got its onboard observers to collect data and improve its data collection of accidentally caught mobulid rays, which were caught as part of the fishing operations. And this was in order for them to develop a strategy to reduce impacts on the ray populations. This Japanese fishery is actually the world's first bluefin tuna fishery to achieve certification. And it was required to improve understanding of how bluefin from the Eastern Atlantic mixes with the separate bluefin stocks in the Western Atlantic. And so the fishery had to collect tissue samples through an independent observation program, and they were analyzed to identify where the tuna were coming from. And the findings of this study will help improve the method used to calculate stock population, which helps ICAT then to set accurate catch limits and enables the fishery to develop best management practice to manage interactions between these different stocks. This is the last case study then, also a bluefin tuna fishery from France. It's an artisanal longline fishery, and it's required to minimize its bycatch mortality of stingrays that are accidentally caught on the long lines. And so with the help of researchers, they instituted a safe handling protocol, which has resulted in high survival rates and no mortalities recorded during the first 7 days of post-release. They managed to add a tracker to these fish that were then to these rays that were released, and these trackers last 7 days, and none of them showed that the fish they were attached to had died. So as I mentioned, more information on these case studies available in the yearbook. So the yearbook also describes then how the new fisheries standard, version 3, oops. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, thank you.
Yes,
We
we
can hear
can.
you.
Sorry, I got muted there. So then the yearbook also describes basically how the fishery standard aims to address several important sustainability issues being faced by tuna fisheries. So stakeholders, have identified a number of sustainability issues with tuna fisheries that need to be addressed, and these include, greater protection for endangered, threatened, and protected species, better management of the impacts of fads, development and implementation of effective harvest strategies, and they want increased confidence that shark finning is not taking place. So the version 3 of our standard then addresses these issues by introducing new requirements that will ensure that species are consistently classified as endangered, threatened, and protected, and then afforded greater protection. Fisheries in our program now need to account for lost FADs and demonstrate how they're avoiding and managing that loss. Have to introduce management procedures for this. And this includes tracking and retrieving FADs and reducing their impact by using non-entangling and biodegradable products. The standard also introduces a structured framework that stocks managed by RFMOs must follow to achieve state-of-the-art harvest strategies. Then the standard also requires that a fins naturally attached policy is required for all fisheries that retain stocks. Fisheries that don't retain sharks. Fisheries that don't retain sharks then must have a non-retention policy in place. So we really want to deal with this issue and eradicate it. Higher levels of monitoring and surveillance are required for all fisheries that enter the program, but particularly for purse seine and longline tuna fisheries that are managed by the RFMOs. So if you're interested in finding out more about how version 3 is helping to improve sustainability in tuna fisheries, please have a look at the yearbook. There's a lot more detail there. The other topics covered by the yearbook that I won't go into great detail here, but I'll just quickly mention, are the In Transition to MSC program. So it's like a FIP program, a fishery improvement program, but it requires fisheries to be independently verified by auditors to ensure that they're making credible ongoing improvements and that they're on target to meet our standard within 5 years. So it's very much time bound. Then the yearbook also describes the MSC's Ocean Stewardship Fund. So this OSF, we call it, Ocean Stewardship Fund, provides grants to fisheries that are certified in ITM and in credible FIPS, and helps them to implement practices that protect the ocean. And since 2020, over £400,000 has been awarded to 9 different tuna fisheries. And finally, there's information on the different types of tuna species in our program and the fishing gears that are used to catch them. So as I mentioned, have a look in the yearbook if you're interested in reading more about this. So that's sort of my discussion of the yearbook. And now, for this last part, I thought we could briefly sort of discuss the MSC engaged tuna fisheries operating in the Indian Ocean. And mention some of the sustainability challenges that are facing African tuna fisheries also operating in the Indian Ocean, and then end on a positive note by highlighting that there are African national tuna fleets that are engaging with the MSC. So first, looking at certified fisheries in the IOTC, there are 5 certified tuna fisheries. I've included the other certified fishery of a tuna-like species, that's swordfish, just for your interest. But let's focus up here. All of these certified fisheries focus or target skipjack. So that's the certified product from these fisheries. And that's because, as we know, the other stocks within the IOTC are not in a great shape and wouldn't be able to be certified, certainly yellowfin and big eye at the moment. So the Maldives was the first fishery, and it's a polar line fishery, to become certified for skipjack tuna, and that was in 2012, so a number of years ago. Then it was quite a while before the other purse seine fisheries became certified, all the remaining 4 are purse seiners. The total catch of all these certified fisheries is just under 343,000 tons, and that's about 50% of the IOTC catch for skipjack. All these 5 certified fisheries have a common condition that they need to ensure that the annual total allowable catch for skipjack is being followed. And so they need to close out this condition by 2026 and show that the TAC is being respected. The Maldives fishery has a condition that it needs to operationalize an observer program to collect more independently verifiable data. And then the purse seine fishes all have conditions relating to the need to improve FAD management even more than they're doing now. However, many fisheries struggle to get certified, and we undertook a study to identify the sustainability challenges for African fisheries wanting to get certified. And in 2023, we published a paper in the journal Frontiers in Marine Science, in which we discussed the performance of all fisheries that had voluntarily undertaken at least a MSC pre-assessment in Africa, all fisheries in Africa that had undertaken a pre-assessment. Among these were 6 Indian Ocean tuna fisheries, and when they split by gear and jurisdiction and species, they comprise 52 units of assessment. So unit of assessment is the reasonable grouping that might make sense to get certified and that you could term as a fishery. So just before we look at the results, though, I think it would be useful to just remind you how the fishery standard is scored. So if you remember, less than 60 is a fail. So in a pre-assessment, you'll see a red color. Between 60 and 79, it's good practice, but improvements are required. So it's a yellow or an orange color. And anything above 80 is green. And just to remind you again that to become certified, a fishery must have at least 60 for each performance indicator and an average of 80 across all performance indicators that are under each one of those 3 principles. So basically, if we're going to look at a heat map now of the results of all those pre-assessments, and what you want to see is that most performance indicators are green. There can be just a few that are orange, but none can be red. And as you can see from this map here of the Indian Ocean tuna fisheries that had pre-assessments, each of the units of assessment are here running this way, all the 52 fisheries that way. These columns here are the performance indicators under Principle 1. These are the performance indicators under Principle 2, and these are the performance indicators under Principle 3. So one can see a lot of red and orange, and this links to the challenges that these fisheries are facing. We undertook hierarchical clustering of these information to try and group these different fisheries together. And as you can see, the only fisheries that look like they could come close to passing the fishery standard are these 3 down here. The rest all have significant challenges to deal with. So what are those challenges? So under Principle 1 over here, many have inadequate harvest strategies. That's this red all the way going down here. And some have overfishing of the particular species they're targeting. So this is quite a challenge because the fishery itself can't really do much about the harvest strategies. That's dealt with at the RFMO level, or Regional Fisheries Management level. But it's important that those are in place. And so this is quite a challenge for fisheries within RFMOs. Looking at Principle 2, then the environmental impacts, one can see, perhaps just before I move on, I should just mention that data limitations will affect all the scoring here, because we have an independent auditors who are assessing these fisheries against the standard. They require information in order to give a score. And so if there's no information, then they have to precautionarily score it very low. And what we find is that many of these African fisheries aren't collecting enough information or the right information for the auditors to actually score them against the standard. And so data limitations affects the scoring in all the performance indicators. So then just jumping back to principle 2, one can see a lot of red and orange here, and this is due to high bycatch impacts and not having sufficient strategies in place to reduce this bycatch is also a reason for poor scoring in these columns here. Then moving on to principle 3, which is the effective management. One can see, thankfully, not as much red, but still quite a lot of orange. And this is due to the being limited fishery-specific management plans for a lot of these species and inadequate enforcement. So there are a number of challenges to overcome. But there are African national tuna fleets that are overcoming these challenges, as we'll see in this next slide here. So we're really excited about this particular fishery. It's a South Africa albacore tuna pole and line fishery, and it was certified on Thursday last week. And it's a pole and line fishery focusing on albacore. There's another South African tuna pole and line fishery also in assessment, as is a purseine fishery from Senegal currently in assessment. And hopefully these will be certified by the end of the year if there are no objections. And we've heard that the Ghana purseine pole and line tuna fishery is also about to enter assessment. So you'll notice then that that all of these are in the Atlantic Ocean. And we'd love to see more tuna fisheries engaging with the MSC program, especially coming from the Indian Ocean as well. So I have some take-home messages to conclude the presentation then, sort of what I hope that we've been able to tell you about and put across. So the MSC is committed to playing its part in protecting oceans by using a market-based approach to incentivize fisheries to operate more sustainably. Sustainable tuna fisheries are very important to the MSC in achieving its vision because they're so large and because we can have such an effect in this particular species group. We saw that African fisheries in general and African tuna fleets really face challenges in meeting the fisheries standard. But what we would like to say is that MSC has an improvement framework. It has tools that can assist and funding that can provide assistance to fisheries that want to undertake sustainability improvements. And so if you know of any tuna fisheries that are looking to start a journey of sustainable improvements and that might even have the ultimate aim of getting certified, then please get in touch. We'd be interested to hear from you. So yeah, thank you. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you, Doreen.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for sharing that with us. A lot of information there for us to digest, but we're also looking forward to read the yearbook that will help us get more context of what you presented. So do we have any questions? Just open your mic and ask or use the chat box. As we are waiting for the questions to come in, I'd like to pose 2 questions, Andrew, to you and Tim. In terms of the slide that you presented to us on the country level preferences on eco-labeling, I did not see a lot of countries whose fleets are in the Indian Ocean region. Is there an explanation to that? Or are they certified through other programs? Then secondly, in terms of the...
Yep, please carry on.
Yes, the country level preferences. We know that there are countries whose fleets are for instance, in the Indian Ocean waters, but we do not see them here. Is there an explanation to it, or does it mean they are certified through other programs? For instance, maybe the Chinese fleets, the Taiwan fleets, and the rest that operate in our waters. Then secondly, I have an observation or a question in terms of the principles that you talked about. You talked about the stock health, ecosystem impact, and the management. And I'm just wondering if inside those principles, you have assistance. Do you consider the social safeguards or the social aspects in the principles, or it's more of the ecological point of view?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, great questions. So
those are my two questions. Anyone else has a question? Maybe we can take three, then you respond to them. Then we go to another set of questions.
Okay.
Any question from the floor? It could be a comment as well, not necessarily a question.
Mine, I'm not sure if it's a comment or a question, but on the certification, I can see much of the stock that is meeting the requirements is the skipjack tuna. Maybe for the case of the Swahili region or the Indian Ocean at large, and we understand yellowfin tuna is going down. I don't know if MSC have made any attempts to have the Indian Ocean yellowfin tuna to be fully MSC certified tuna.
Yeah, thank you. Doreen, can I perhaps begin answering those three questions?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So I think this this is sort of the tables that you were referring to for your first question. So this is where the MSC labeled or eco-labeled product is sold. So these are where it comes from. Isn't the fishery, isn't the fishery or the region or the country it comes from, but rather where it's sold. And one finds that with skipjack particularly, you have the fisheries, and they might be fishing in different oceans, and then that product is then shipped to canneries that can be in Thailand, in Singapore, in Mauritius, it can be in the west coast of Africa, or so they all over the world, and then they're canned there and then distributed to countries throughout the world as well. So there is a big network of product moving from where it's caught to where it's processed into a product, say a can, and then distributed throughout the world to somewhere else. So we're able to, as the MSC, say where MSC labeled skipjack is sold, because when it is sold, it carries an eco label, that information is reported to us. And we can say where MSC skipjack is caught, but we don't have the information about where about what happens in between, because that, although there's chain of custody where the supply chain has to prove that it's keeping certified products separate, they don't tell us exactly who they are selling onto and who they're sourcing from and who they're selling onto. So yeah, this information here, then the market information tells you where the customers are, who wants what type of product, I guess. And so that was what I was trying to kind of put across, is that skipjack is very popular in the United States and in Northern Europe, and yellowfin, as you can see, is very popular in Southern Europe. So I hope that answers that first question. In terms of the second question, so the MSC standard is an environmental standard focusing on sustainability to do with the fishing, in terms of, as you described, the stocks in Principle 1, minimizing impacts on the environment in Principle 2, and effective management in Principle 3. However, we do know that social, the social component of fishing is very important. And we do have a labor declaration form that any fishery that enters into MSC has to produce, has to sign this labor declaration form, which confirms that it hasn't had any egregious or poor labor practices, and hasn't been convicted of any breaking any labor laws in the last 2 years. And if MSC wants to investigate further, then it can pay an external auditor to assess a particular fishery, just to make sure that that labor declaration form is accurate. But what we found is a few years ago, in trying to investigate the introduction of social components into the standard, is that firstly, it just made the standard too large and too complicated and too expensive to implement. And secondly, our whole organization and all the people employed are environmentally focused, not socially focused. So you need special skills to be able to address that kind of that different kind of issue. So the thinking going forward then is for us to investigate other social certification schemes, and then collaborate with them. So this is something we're contemplating, that, and looking into the future, it would be MSC as the environmental standard, and then we will recommend that specific social certifications are also undertaken, and we'll identify the ones that we feel or stakeholders feel are of good enough quality. So it's almost like what they call a bolt-on addition. And then answering the third question, then so the MSC maintains the fisheries standard. So we develop the standard itself, and we have to be, as a standard setter, then we have to be neutral really in that respect. You then have the independent auditors that the fishery will actually pay the independent auditors to assess them against our standard. So we have got to remain neutral about the fishery and about the stock. Basically, whichever fishery or stock is being assessed, it has to pass the standard, and we don't really get involved in helping fisheries or or trying to get particular stocks into the program. It's got to be very neutral. We got to be neutral, and then the assessment is done by auditors who are separate. However, we are concerned about the yellowfin stocks and other stocks all over the world, and we'll continue to speak out and try and encourage fisheries to work together along with RFMOs in the case of tuna fisheries to address these conditions. And as soon as those stocks improve to a level where they can enter into the program, then those fisheries can actually volunteer to have themselves assessed against the program. So I hope that answers those questions. I'm happy to take some follow-up ones to clarify.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for providing that clarification. We're very aware of the time. We're supposed to end at 12, but may I request for 15 more minutes of your time to help us close the meeting? Do we have
Yes, with
any
pleasure.
other question? Any other questions before we move to the last section on closing?
I think I'm just having a look in the chat, and I see Patrick has a question here. Tuna fishers of the Indian Ocean, Africa operate on small scale and limited means. How MSC can assist in their certification? So yeah, this is a challenge that is recognized by the MSC. However, a number of fisheries have been a number of small-scale fisheries have been certified by the MSC. The important thing, I think, is that those fishers have a very strong association and very strong sort of internal management. That makes a big difference in being able to engage with the MSC program. That's the first thing. And secondly, then, as I mentioned, we have this in transition to MSC program. So it's like a FIP framework. And if the fisheries enter that, then they can have support from the MSC in sort of understanding the standard and how to address issues. And there also can be opportunities to receive funding to help them address the actions that come out of an action plan that is undertaken as part of the process. So it is more challenging for small-scale fisheries, but it's not impossible. A number of them are already in the program, and we do have these tools and programs that we institute to help these fisheries. So please have a look at our website if you're interested in the In Transition to MSC program, which will soon be relaunched as the MSC Improver program, and that might be of interest to you there.
Okay, thank you. I don't think there's any other question. I'm looking at the chat box. I don't see any or any hand up. So may I request that we move to the last session on just closing and way forward. And for this section, I'll invite John Kareko to give us that, but also I'll also invite the chair, since the chair is here at Libecha. I'll also invite him to say 1 or 2 words to close the meeting. But as John prepares to come and the chair, just to let you know that we are aware that we speak different languages, and in the next webinars or in the upcoming webinars, we'll endeavor to be inclusive and provide Portuguese and French translation. Then we'll share this presentation that we've done here with you, but also we'll conduct a survey that will also inform us in terms of our next steps. We'll be sending out the survey today, and we encourage you to fill that out. Yes. So, John.
Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. Thank you, Andrew, for the wonderful presentation. And I think today has been a really remarkable day when now we start engaging with what you do as Marine Steward Council. And I think it's a beginning of really the understanding so that we can engage from now henceforth. And it's also interesting to see that quite a number of countries have really gotten into the eco-labeling, but we don't seem to be doing very well in the Suyo region. So that means that we really have a job to do to get our fishers and the government into eco-labeling. And I would think that it would be important for us also to understand who are the drivers of the eco-labeling. Is it the government? Is it the non-state actors? Or is it the fishers themselves? Because that could be an issue within our region, whereby the government might think it's the business of the non-state actors who are maybe expecting to follow it up because maybe they benefit from it. But I think this is something that has to be undertaken by all parties that participate in the fisheries. But when that is clear, then to enable us be able to know which are the most important or the leverage points that we need to intervene in when coming into this, to at least make sure that our fisheries is compliant with what is required. So for now, I know as we begin now, we are going to engage much more with the yearbook, get to see what is expected of each party. And I think these webinars will be good for us to work together to be able to assist one another to at least make sure that our fisheries is sustainable. And also as a security to seafoods that we get. So I think for me, this would be really a good start. And there are more areas that we can collaborate together with the MSC and see how we go about it. So let me encourage everyone else to really engage with the workbook and the requirements, and also get to see what role each one of us can play to make sure that the seafood we get within the region or we produce is eco-labeled. So with that, I would really want to give space to maybe the chairman to say one or two once and get to see where we go. Doreen, maybe before we close, I think it would be important for us to take a group photograph so that we can have a good record of this activity. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, my name is Becha. I'm the chair of Tuna. First and foremost, I really appreciate the Marine Stewardship Council, particularly Bugodot, for giving us this very, very important, discussion. There's quite a lot that membership of particularly the information that has been shared on matters of certification, but also the process that goes into that certification. We can enhance, tuna fisheries through market-based approaches, which is quite, interesting. So I don't have much to say, but to appreciate Andrew and to appreciate Marine Stewardship Council on behalf of our membership. And I thank you, Doreen, and the Secretariat for organizing this very important session. So for that, I appreciate. Back to you, Doreen.
Thank you so much, Chair. Could we all open our videos just to take a group photo? Then let's open our videos. We do a group photo. I think, Devon, you've taken the screenshot for both pages. Okay, so thank you, everyone. I see a request from Betty to share the recording. Yes, we'll share all this with you. So just to appreciate everyone for your time. Also to appreciate Andrew and team for this. And thank you again, everyone. Have a good day.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good to see everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Bye-bye.
day. Sorry, network is not very good here in Madagascar.
Bye, bye, bye.
Bye.
Okay, Fetty, we'll share the recording and the presentation with you.
Okay. Salam.